NATO leaders agreed to double their military presence in Eastern Europe. They will deploy thousands of troops to 4 more countries: Bulgaria, Hungary, Romania, and Slovakia. That's on top of the 4 combat units already in place further north. Some of those neighboring states fear they could be Russia's next target. Artis Pabriks is the Deputy Prime Minister of Latvia and also the Minister for Defense in that country, and he joins me now. Hello, Deputy Prime Minister. It's good to have you here.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much. We've had 2 guests on speaking earlier in the program. I think you were able to hear one of them talking about the potential for Putin to not stop, to essentially go beyond the borders of Ukraine. Is that a concern you share?
Yes, we do, because it's not only about the bordering countries. It would be wrong to say that, look, if Ukraine falls, then he will invade this and that country. It might happen, but he's after NATO and European Union and Western alliance as such. And unfortunately, before the Ukrainian war, we maybe have been walking with open eyes, but we didn't see, particularly many Western countries. And we have been, from the Baltics or Poland or Sweden or Finland, we have been warning about these events, what happens in Russia for a long time. It happened now.
And I wonder if the conversations that you're having now, after what's happened in Ukraine, have changed. Do you feel there is a different realization among, for example, leaders like in this country or the United States about the threat that Russia poses?
Yes, there is. There is understanding that basically this is the challenge to everybody. And obviously Putin did not reach his goals to divide us and fragmentate us, because this is a major target. It's not about Ukraine, in fact. It's about West as such, where he's trying to get us split, to have different opinions, and so to make us weaker. So he received just a totally opposite answer, because we are more united. The fact and question now is, how much do we really act in favor of Ukraine, which is fighting our war?
And what is your position on that? Because we've also been discussing that for a while, and that was a live conversation at NATO as well. President Zelensky has very specific asks. They need help, if not in closing the space and designated a no-fly zone, supplying the equipment for them to do it themselves.
Right. Well, in the first 10 days of Russian invasion against Ukrainians, Latvia donated as a present military hardware for about 1/3 of our military budget. So this is what we did. And our neighboring countries did basically the same. So our position is very clear and simple. First, there is no too much sanctions against Russia. We should simply go more and more. We should de-Putinize the West, because many companies, many politicians, many people have been actually benefiting from this very strange relationship with Russia. Secondly, we have to give a maximum military support to Ukraine available, and we must not be bullied by Russian position, because they're trying to scare us and to tell, if you do this, then we might use that weapon. If you don't do this, we might use this. No, I mean... It's
the nuclear threat, really.
Yes, but you know what? He understands that Western societies are ready to blink. So they're pushing more, and they're observing us. And this is exactly how you deal on the street with gangsters as well. Simply, if they threaten you, you should tell, do you really want a nuclear war? Are you ready to die for that? Because Russia is not the only country which possesses nuclear weapons. And they understand the realistic approach. But if we allow ourselves to be bullied, then we are losers. We should not allow this.
What is your assessment of then what the West is doing right now? Is it allowing itself to be bullied? Because very clearly they have drawn a line about what they're prepared to do. Yes, we're prepared to provide Ukraine with weapons, but they won't provide them with fighter jets, for example. They won't designate the space above there a no-fly zone. Like, what is your assessment of that?
I understand about, let's say, airspace, because that would be technically more difficult without our own involvement. But honestly speaking, I think that we should deliver as soon as possible all the equipment with what Ukrainians can shoot down planes. And up to now, I did not receive a very clear argumentation why exactly we are not giving those older Russian production planes for Ukraine to operate themselves, because we are not flying our pilots there. So in fact, what is the difference? Do we give a Stinger or do we give a MiG-29? And I think we are kind of on the borderline here. Of course, if Russians will try to escalate more, it will be necessary for us to move with even larger assistance, because we cannot simply allow Ukraine to fail. And I would say it's also about kind of principles and presence, because as I speak today, we have already 1 month of this evil invasion and war. And today, speakers of the 3 parliaments of all 3 Baltic states of Latvia, Estonia and Lithuania are in Kiev, meeting with Kiev parliamentarians. Just a week or so ago, there have been Polish Prime Minister, there have been Czech Prime Minister, Slovenian Prime Minister. We are basically trying to show them that we are with you. Maybe it is risky, but you know, I didn't see any Western leader going to Kiev at this moment. And I think this is what is needed, because this is a sovereign country and there is nobody's right to threaten us to visit our friends in Kiev and Ukraine, which are now shelled improperly and where civilians are killed. This is our right and this is our moral duty to do this.
Some of the discussion that took place at the NATO summit, as well as I think from my understanding, your conversations with your counterparts here in Canada involve what NATO can do as a result of this to bolster its own presence and its own strength around there. Is that conversation, though, as relevant or as necessary as the one that should be happening as you describe it about what to do in Ukraine? Like, does it matter that all of this is being built up and that there's strategic conversations about what happens outside of Ukraine if what's happening inside of Ukraine is not adequately dealt with?
Well, this issue is not just of one day, because we will face Russia also after this war will end. And it's very clear that Russian position will not change in the nearest years. And it's very clear also that many countries like mine, like Latvia, for instance, have been living next to Russia in asymmetric power situation, because even with the presence of our allied troops, which is not very large in Latvia, including Canadians, and I must use this chance and say thank you very much to Canadian society and all Canada for that support which you give, not only to us, but to peace in Europe and stability in Europe, because we are the border country of NATO and we are the border country of EU. So you are a great ally and a great friend to us. But we also must understand that future situation will be different from the situation before the Russian invasion. Namely, we cannot anymore risk to live in asymmetry as it was before. That means that the presence of NATO troops, the strength of NATO troops at the border with Russia should be larger to distract any unwilling event. And that would mean that probably there would be also the necessity, first of all, to different planning, military planning, on which we work together with Stoltenberg and NATO institutions. There will be need for a larger allied presence in such countries as Poland, Baltic states, maybe somewhere else, and also of different type of equipment. And over all this, above all this, there is need for a larger investment in our defense. Because if we do not, let's say, guarantee a security for ourselves, then all these discussions about our internal freedoms will evade. Because if we want to live peacefully in our home, we insure it. We insure our car, we insure our health. Why don't we insure our security in our countries?
Deputy Prime Minister, I have to leave it there. I'm out of time. I appreciate your time very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And safe travels. Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.